you're driving alone, windows up, and you're having a full conversation with someone who isn't there. You're explaining yourself, defending a choice you made 3 years ago, rehearsing what you should have said in that argument last week. Then you catch yourself in the rearview mirror, talking, hands moving, fully invested. For a second you think, am I losing it? And the strange part, it doesn't even feel strange anymore. But here's what no one tells you. If you prefer talking to yourself over talking to other people, you're not broken, you're adapted. By the end of this video, you'll understand 3 things. Why your brain wired itself this way. And it starts way earlier than you think. What the 6 behaviors really mean. The ones you thought were weird. They're signals. And the one question most people never ask themselves. What does my inner voice give me that the outer world cannot? Let's start with the part no one talks about. Most people think talking to yourself is a personality quirk, a habit you picked up, something introverts do, but it's not random. Developmental psychologist Lev Vygotsky discovered that children naturally talk aloud to themselves as a tool for self-regulation, to organize thoughts, solve problems, and process emotions. He called it private speech. And it's completely normal between the ages of 3 and 7. Kids narrate what they're doing. They work through problems out loud. They coach themselves. Okay, now I put the blue block here. No, that doesn't work. Try the red one. It's how the brain learns to think. Most children grow out of it by age 8 or 9. Not because the need disappears, but because the world teaches them it's no longer acceptable. Parents say, use your inside voice. Teachers say, and stop talking to yourself and pay attention. Other kids say, why are you being weird? So the voice goes quiet, but it doesn't go away. It just moves inward. And once it moves inward, most people never question it again. Now, here's where it gets important. For most people, that inner voice becomes a background hum, a quiet narrator that helps them think, but doesn't dominate their mental space. But for some people, it becomes the primary voice. Not because they chose it, because it became the only voice that was safe. What if, when you tried to share what you were thinking or feeling, your parents dismissed what you said? Your teachers made you feel stupid for asking questions. Your friends mocked the things you cared about. Your brain learned something that day. If I want to be truly heard, I have to be the one listening. So, you didn't stop talking. You just stopped talking to them. And here's the part that hurts. You didn't choose this. Your nervous system did. It said, the safest place to process emotion is inside. The most dangerous place is out loud. And once that belief gets coded into your brain, it doesn't just go away when you grow up. It becomes the blueprint for how you relate to the world. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I talk to myself because I'm just a verbal processor, right? It's not that deep. Hold that thought, because what I'm about to show you in the next 6 points will explain why it's not just about processing. It's about protection. If you prefer talking to yourself over others, you recognize at least 4 of these 6 behaviors. And each one isn't just a habit, it's a clue. The first sign, you rehearse conversations before you have them. You don't just wing it when you talk to people. You script it, in your head, sometimes out loud. You imagine what they'll say, what you'll say back, how they'll react. You rehearse the opening line. You anticipate their tone. You plan 3 different versions depending on their mood. And it's not because you're nervous. It's because you've learned that spontaneity equals risk. A 2018 study in cognitive science found that people who engage in pre-conversation rehearsal often come from environments where emotional responses were unpredictable. You don't rehearse because you're insecure. You rehearse because you were once punished for saying the wrong thing. And now, your brain treats every conversation like a test you need to pass. The problem is, most people don't live like this. They walk into conversations without a script. They say what they feel in the moment. And when you're around them, you feel the gap. You feel how much effort it takes you to do what comes naturally to them. And that gap, it makes you retreat further into your own head. The second one is subtle, but it says more about your past than you realize. The second sign, you explain your feelings to yourself, out loud. Most people feel something and move on. You feel something and then you describe it, out loud. Okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. Why? Because I have that meeting tomorrow. But it's not really about the meeting. It's that I feel like I'm going to say something wrong. And then you go deeper. But why do I think that? Because last time I spoke up, no one responded. And they just moved on like I hadn't said anything. And that made me feel invisible. You don't do this to complain. You do this to survive. Because somewhere along the way, you learned if you don't name it, it controls you. Psychologist Dr. Dan Siegel calls this name it to tame it, labeling emotions to reduce their intensity. When you name what you're feeling, the prefrontal cortex activates. It creates distance between you and the emotion, and that shift gives you control. But here's the twist. Most people do this with someone, a friend, a therapist, a partner. You do it alone, because the person you trusted to hold space for your feelings, they didn't. So now, you hold it yourself. You became your own therapist, your own witness, your own safe place. And while that's a survival skill that deserves respect, it's also exhausting. The third sign, you've had full arguments with people who aren't there, and you won. Every time. You replayed that conversation from last month, the one where you stayed quiet, where you didn't defend yourself, and in your head, or in your car, or your shower, you finally said what you meant. You stood your ground. You were articulate. You were heard. And for a moment, it felt good. But then you come back to reality, and nothing's changed. Here's what that behavior is really about. It's not about winning. It's about being seen. Those imaginary arguments, they're your brain's way of practicing self-advocacy in a space where you won't be interrupted, dismissed, or gaslit. You're not stuck in the past. You're trying to rewrite it. You're not talking to yourself because you're alone. You're talking to yourself because no one listened when it mattered. But here's the trap. The more you win these arguments in your head, the less you feel the need to have them in real life. Because your brain gets the satisfaction, the release, the sense of closure, without any of the risk. And so, you stay silent in the real world, and the cycle continues. The fourth sign, silence feels louder than noise. When you're around other people, even people you love, there's this hum, a background static of, am I saying the right thing? Do they actually care? Are they just waiting for me to stop talking? Even in good conversations, there's a part of you that's performing, monitoring, adjusting, reading their face to see if you're still safe. It's exhausting. But when you're alone, that hum disappears. No one to perform for, no one to monitor. And suddenly, you can think clearly. You can breathe. You can be yourself without filtering. This is why you prefer your own company. Not because you hate people, because people exhaust the part of you that's always translating yourself for them. The fifth sign, you test your thoughts. Before you share them, you have an idea, a feeling, an opinion, but you don't just say it. First, you run it by yourself. You say it out loud. You hear how it sounds. You imagine how they'll hear it, and if it doesn't pass the test, you don't say it at all. Most people call this overthinking, but here's what it really is. Self-protection. You've been misunderstood too many times. You've said something honest and had it thrown back at you. So now, you don't take chances. You talk to yourself first, because you're the only person who won't misinterpret you. The sixth sign, you feel guilty about it. And this one's the hardest, because deep down, you think something's wrong with you. You see other people who can just talk, who don't need to rehearse, who don't replay every conversation. And you think, why can't I just be normal? But here's the truth. You're not avoiding connection. You're protecting it. Because the version of connection you're looking for, the one where you're actually heard, not just responded to, that's rare. And until you find it, you'd rather talk to yourself than settle for surface level conversation that leaves you feeling lonelier than silence ever could. That's not dysfunction, that's discernment. Remember earlier when I said this isn't just about being a verbal processor? Here's why. Talking to yourself isn't the problem. It's the solution your brain created when the world stopped listening. And the reason it feels wrong is because we live in a culture that treats self-reliance as loneliness and solitude as failure. But you're not failing, you're adapting. Now here's the question most people never ask. If talking to yourself is an adaptation, why does it sometimes feel like a trap? Here's the part no one talks about. The more you talk to yourself, the better you get at it. You become articulate, self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and that's powerful. It feels like growth, but it quietly becomes distance. But here's the cost. You start to prefer it, not because you don't want connection, because real conversations can't compete with the one in your head. In your head, you're never interrupted, never judged, never misunderstood. In your head, you're finally free. But in the real world, people don't listen the way you listen to yourself. They don't ask the follow-up questions you need. They don't hold space the way you've learned to hold it for yourself. And so, slowly, you stop trying. You stop sharing the things that matter. You stop reaching out when you're struggling, and started to believe that you're the only person who will ever really get you. And that belief, it's not entirely wrong, but it's also not entirely true. Because there are people out there who can listen deeply, who can hold complexity. They're just rare. And the trap is this: the safer you make your inner world, the less willing you are to risk the outer one. And I get it, because the outer world has hurt you. But here's what I need you to hear. You didn't talk to yourself because you were born to be alone. You talked to yourself because at some point, being alone felt safer than being misunderstood. And that's the difference. One is identity. The other is protection. And protection, when it becomes permanent, turns into isolation. So, what do you need to do with this? You don't need to stop talking to yourself. You need to stop feeling ashamed of it. And you need to follow these 3 steps. Step 1. Treat self-talk as information, not isolation. The next time you catch yourself talking out loud, don't shut it down. Ask, what am I trying to process right now? Is it an unresolved emotion, a conversation you need to have, a boundary you need to set? Your self-talk is a signal. It's telling you what you're not saying out loud. Write it down, and then ask yourself, who in my life needs to hear this? The goal isn't to stop processing alone. The goal is to let the processing lead somewhere. Because when your inner dialogue never becomes outer dialogue, nothing changes. Step 2. Find one person who listens the way. You listen to yourself. You don't need a crowd. You need one person who doesn't interrupt, doesn't fix, doesn't dismiss. A therapist, a trusted friend, an online community that gets it. Test the water. Share one thing you'd normally only say to yourself. Something small, something true, and watch how they respond. Do they stay present? Do they ask questions? Do they hold what you said without trying to change it? If they do, that's your person. You won't find them if you never let anyone in. Step 3. Stop practicing for conversations. You're never going to have this one's hard, but if you've rehearsed a conversation 47 times and still haven't had it, that's not preparation. That's avoidance. And avoidance feels safe until it starts costing you your voice. You're protecting yourself from rejection. But here's the truth. Silence guarantees you'll never be heard. And speaking only gives you a chance. And sometimes the chance is enough. Maybe they won't respond perfectly, but maybe they'll try. And that trying, that's where connection starts. So the next time you catch yourself rehearsing, ask, what am I afraid will happen if I actually say this? And then ask, is that fear bigger than the cost of staying silent? Because staying silent has a cost too. It costs you the version of yourself that exists outside your head. So why does it feel like a trap? Because you've gotten so good at being your own listener, you forgot that other people can learn to listen too. Not perfectly, not the way you do, but enough. And enough is where connection starts. If you made it this far, I want you to do something. Go back to that question I asked at the beginning. What does my inner voice give me that the outer world cannot? Now answer it out loud, and then ask yourself, what would need to change in my real life for me to feel as safe out there as I do in here? Because the goal isn't to stop talking to yourself. The goal is to build a world where you don't have to choose, where your inner voice and your outer voice can finally say the same thing. You're not weird. You're not broken. You're just someone who learned to be their own safe space. And that's not a flaw. That's survival. But survival isn't the same as living. And maybe it's time to be heard outside your own head. If this hit you, subscribe to UNFELT. Comment one word you repeat to yourself when no one's listening. What you talk to yourself about the most. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. See you there.